This is a story about what happens when family crosses a line that should never be crossed, and the lengths a mother will go to in order to pick up the pieces. If you've ever dreamed of serving justice to someone who wronged you, hit that like button, subscribe, and get ready for one of the most emotionally charged stories of betrayal and boundaries you will hear today. It was supposed to be Lucy's 7th birthday party. I emphasize supposed to be because in my mind, in my heart, and in the countless hours of planning we had poured into this day, it was already a memory waiting to be made, a perfect, golden afternoon etched into the history of my little girl's childhood. We had been planning it for weeks, not just the logistics, but the emotional buildup. Lucy had just finished first grade, a milestone that felt enormous for her. She had struggled a bit with reading earlier in the year, and we had worked so hard, night after night, to help her catch up. This party wasn't just a birthday, it was a celebration of her resilience. Lucy had invited 23 kids from her class, and I'm not talking about a vague list of names scribbled on a piece of paper. We had organized a digital RSVP system because, like any modern parent, I wanted to be sure about dietary restrictions and head counts. Every single one had RSVP'd yes. Every single one. In a world where parents are often too busy or too forgetful to even open an evite, a 100% yes rate felt like a miracle. It felt like validation that Lucy was liked, that she was settling in, that she was doing okay. We had rented a pavilion at the local park, one of those big, covered structures with ceiling fans and picnic tables that imply a serious commitment to a party. It wasn't cheap, but seeing the excitement on Lucy's face made every penny feel like an investment in her happiness. We ordered pizza from her favorite place, the one with the stuffed crust she loved, bought decorations in every shade of purple imaginable, secured a massive bounce house shaped like a castle, and curated party favors that included slime and glow sticks, the treasures of 7-year-olds everywhere. Lucy had been so excited she'd picked out her outfit 3 days early. It was a purple dress with sparkles that caught the light every time she spun around. She had laid it out on her chair, smoothing the fabric every time she walked past her room. She counted down the days on her fingers every morning at breakfast. 7 days, 6 days, 5 days. Her smile got bigger each time, a beacon of pure, unadulterated joy that I wished I could bottle up and keep forever. The party was set for Saturday at 2:00 p.m. That morning, Lucy woke up at 6:00 a.m. I heard her little feet padding down the hallway before the sun had even fully crested the horizon. She burst into my room, her hair a mess of tangles but her eyes bright. "Is it time yet, Mama?" she whispered, trying not to wake the whole house but failing to contain her own vibration. "Not yet, baby," I said, my voice thick with sleep but warmed by her excitement. "But soon." "Go rest a little more." She couldn't, of course. She buzzed around the house like a tiny hummingbird, checking the gift table, rearranging the napkins, asking if the pizza place had confirmed the order 10 times. By noon, we were at the park setting up. The sun was high, the air smelled of cut grass and anticipation. My husband, Ryan, was inflating balloons, the rhythmic hiss of the pump competing with the distant sound of kids playing on the main playground. I was arranging tables, putting out the themed plates and the happy birthday banner. Lucy was running around checking everything, making sure the bounce house was properly secured by the rental guys, making sure the pizza warming bags were ready on the serving table. She took her role as hostess incredibly seriously. At 1:30 we were ready. Everything looked perfect. The pavilion was a purple kingdom. The cake sat in the center like a throne. Lucy stood by the entrance to the pavilion, watching the parking lot, waiting for her friends. She was practically vibrating. 2:00 came. The big hand on my watch ticked past the 12. I smiled, expecting the rush of minivans and sedans that usually accompanies a birthday party. But the parking lot stayed still. A few cars drove past on the main road, but none turned in. "They'll be here soon," I told myself. "People are always late." 2:15 rolled around, still no one. The parking lot remained an expanse of empty asphalt. I checked my phone. No texts, no missed calls. Just a silent, glowing screen. 2:30. The silence was beginning to feel heavy. The rental guy looked at me with a mix of pity and professional patience. Lucy's face started to change. It was a slow, agonizing shift. First, the bright light in her eyes dimmed. The excitement melted away, replaced by a look of confused hopefulness. She looked at me, then back at the road, then at me again. "Mama, where is everyone?" Her voice was small, fragile, like thin glass. "I don't know, baby," I said, forcing a smile that felt like it was cracking my face. "Maybe they're running late. Maybe there was a big traffic jam." I pulled out my phone, my fingers trembling slightly. I started texting parents. "Hey, just checking if you guys are close. We're all set up." I waited. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, no responses. I tried calling. Ring, ring, voicemail, ring, ring, voicemail. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. It felt mocking. By 3:00, the reality had settled in like a heavy fog. Lucy was crying. Not the loud, tantrum cry of a child who wants a toy, but the quiet, heaving sobs of a child whose heart is breaking. She sat on a bench, the purple dress suddenly looking too bright for the occasion. "Nobody came," she whispered, the words landing like stones in my chest. "Nobody wanted to come to my party." "That's not true," I said, rushing to kneel beside her, wrapping my arms around her shaking shoulders. "That is not true, Lucy. Something is wrong, but it is not that nobody wanted to come." But I didn't understand what was happening. 23 kids, 23 confirmed RSVPs, all no-shows. That doesn't just happen. Accidents happen, traffic happens. But 23 families coincidentally forgetting. That is a statistical impossibility. My husband, Ryan, walked over from the balloon station, the unused strings trailing in the dirt. He looked pale. He didn't have to say anything. The empty parking lot spoke for him. We looked at each other, a silent communication passing between us. Something was deeply, terrifyingly wrong. We packed up in a daze. It felt like moving through a nightmare where your limbs are heavy and the air is thick. We loaded the untouched cake, the bags of unopened pizza, the presents that no one would watch her open. Lucy went straight to the car, her head down. We drove home in a silence that was louder than any argument we had ever had. When we got home, Lucy went straight to her room. She wouldn't come out, she wouldn't eat cake, she wouldn't open presents. She just lay on her bed, clutching a stuffed animal, crying. I stood in the hallway, listening to her sniffles, and I felt a rage begin to bubble in the pit of my stomach. It was a cold, hard rage. I'd never seen her so hurt, so betrayed, so small. And the worst part was not knowing why. Who does that to a child? Who does that to a class full of families? That evening, while Ryan tried to coax Lucy out for dinner, my phone finally rang. It was a number I recognized, a mom named Jennifer. Her son, Leo, was one of Lucy's best friends. I answered on the first ring, nearly dropping the phone in my haste. "Hello, Jennifer." "Hey," she said, her voice sounding tentative and confused. "I'm so sorry we didn't make it today. We felt terrible when we got the news. But since you canceled the party, we made other plans and ended up going to the zoo." "I hope Lucy is feeling better." I froze. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. I gripped the edge of the kitchen counter to steady myself. What?" I stammered. "I didn't cancel anything." There was a beat of silence on the other end. "What do you mean?" Jennifer asked, her voice dropping. You canceled. Yes, you did. I got a call yesterday afternoon. Your mother-in-law called me. Said the party was off, that Lucy was sick. She sounded very concerned, very apologetic. She said it was a sudden fever and that you were at the doctor's office and didn't want people to show up and get exposed." My blood ran cold. It felt like ice water had been injected into my veins. "My mother-in-law called you?" I whispered, though I already knew the answer. I knew exactly who it was. Diane. "Yes," Jennifer continued, sounding increasingly horrified as she pieced it together. "She called all the parents. At least that's what she said. She had a list. She read off the names to make sure she didn't miss anyone. She said she was helping you make calls because you were too stressed dealing with Lucy being sick." I couldn't breathe. The room felt like it was closing in. Lucy wasn't sick. The party wasn't canceled. My mother-in-law had no authority to make those calls. She didn't live with us. She wasn't part of the planning committee. She was a guest, nothing more. Jennifer went quiet on the other end. "Oh no," she breathed. "Oh my God, are you saying the party actually happened, that Lucy was there?" "Yes," I said, my voice shaking with a ferocity that terrified even me. "Lucy stood there for over an hour waiting for her friends. She cried herself to sleep thinking nobody wanted to come. She thinks she has no friends, Jennifer." "I'm so sorry," Jennifer said, her voice cracking. I had no idea. She sounded so convincing, so official. She said she was the grandmother handling the crisis. We believed her. We thought we were doing the right thing by not coming and exposing the kids to germs. I hung up the phone and walked into the living room where Ryan was sitting with his head in his hands. He looked up, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. Your mother called every single parent, I said, my voice devoid of emotion. She told them the party was canceled. She told them Lucy was sick. Ryan's face went pale. The color drained from it so fast I thought he might faint. What? He whispered. She lied, told them Lucy was sick, convinced them not to come. Lucy's birthday was ruined because your mother sabotaged it. Ryan stood up, his hands balling into fists at his sides. I saw the conflict in his eyes, the loyalty to his mother warring with the reality of his daughter's pain. But in that moment, looking at the closed door of our daughter's room, the loyalty lost. I'm going over there, he said, grabbing his keys from the hook. I'm coming with you, I said. We drove to Diane's house in silence. The ride felt like a siege. We didn't call ahead. We didn't give her time to prepare her lies. We just showed up, knocked on the door with an authority that brooked no refusal. She answered with a smile. It was a pleasant, practiced smile, the kind she wore to church socials and family dinners. Oh, hello, she chirped, looking genuinely surprised but delighted. What a nice surprise. How was the party? She knew. I could see it in her eyes, a flicker of something dark and satisfied behind the grandmotherly warmth. There was no party, I said. My voice was shaking, but not from fear, from rage. Because you called all the parents and canceled it. Diane's smile didn't falter. If anything, it tightened. She stepped aside, gesturing for us to come in as if we were there for tea. I did what was best, she said calmly, closing the door behind us. Best for who? Ryan asked, his voice vibrating with a tension I rarely heard from him. For Lucy, Diane said, walking into her living room and sitting down, assuming we would follow. Those children weren't appropriate friends for her. I've seen some of them at the school pickup. They're too loud, too rough. One of them had dirt on his face. Lucy needs better influences. She needs class. I stared at her, my mouth slightly open. You don't get to decide who her friends are, I said, stepping forward. Actually, I do, Diane said, smoothing her skirt. I'm her grandmother. I have a responsibility to guide her. And you two clearly aren't capable of making good choices for her. You let her invite just anyone. It reflects poorly on our family. You ruined her birthday, I said, the words tearing out of me. She cried for 3 hours. She thinks nobody wanted to come. She thinks she's unlovable. She'll get over it, Diane waved a hand dismissively. Children are resilient. It's a good lesson for her to learn early that quality is better than quantity. Ryan stepped forward, his body shaking. You had no right to do that. I had every right, Diane snapped, her mask slipping to reveal the steel underneath. You've been letting her run wild, letting her associate with anyone. Someone needs to set boundaries. Someone needs to protect her future. We set the boundaries, Ryan said, his voice rising. Not you. You are the grandmother. You are not the parent. Well, clearly you're not doing a good enough job, Diane scoffed. A mother who lets her daughter be friends with street rats isn't doing her job. Something in me snapped. The polite veneer, the hesitation, the respect for an elder, it all evaporated. I looked at Ryan. We're leaving, I said, and we're not coming back. Diane laughed, a dry, humorless sound. Don't be dramatic. You'll cool off and realize I did you a favor. I'll be dramatic if I want, I spat, turning to face her fully. You deliberately hurt my daughter. You lied to 23 families. You sabotaged her birthday party. You didn't protect her. You destroyed her joy. That's not guidance. That's cruelty, and I will not have a cruel woman in my daughter's life. We turned and walked out. She shouted something about us being ungrateful, but I didn't hear it over the roaring in my ears. When we got home, the silence in the house was heavy. Lucy was still in her room. I knocked softly. Can I come in? Yeah, Lucy said. Her voice was small, tired, hoarse from crying. I sat on her bed. She looked up at me, her eyes red and puffy. Lucy, I said, brushing a stray hair from her forehead. I need to tell you something about why nobody came today. She looked away. Because they don't like me, she said, the words barely audible. No, I said firmly. No, that is not why. I found out what happened. Grandma called all their parents and lied. She told them the party was canceled. She told them you were sick. None of them knew the party was still happening. They thought they were doing the right thing by staying home. Lucy looked up at me, her brow furrowed. Grandma did that? Yes. Why? I took a deep breath. I don't know, baby, but it was wrong, very wrong, and I'm so sorry it happened. Lucy was quiet for a long time. I watched her process it. The confusion, then the realization, then a flicker of relief. So, they didn't know, they weren't being mean. They had no idea, I said. They thought they were doing the right thing by staying home. Lucy nodded slowly. Okay. We're going to fix this, I said, my resolve hardening. I'm going to call every parent back, explain what happened. We'll reschedule the party, and Grandma won't be invited. The next day I went to war. I called every parent one by one. I explained the situation. I swallowed my pride and apologized for the confusion, even though it wasn't my fault. Every single one was horrified. They were angry on my behalf. They were sympathetic. They all agreed to come to a rescheduled party. We set it for the following weekend, but I wasn't done. The party was the immediate fix, but the root of the problem was still there. What Diane had done wasn't just mean. It was calculated. It was intentional. It was a power play, and I wasn't going to let it go. I called a lawyer, a sharp woman named Sarah who specialized in family law. I explained the situation, asked if there was anything I could do legally. Probably not, Sarah said, her tone clinical but kind. She didn't break any laws. Lying to parents about a party isn't a crime. It's civil, but even then there are no damages the court cares about. So she gets away with it. I asked, my grip tight on the phone. Legally, yes, but you can protect yourself going forward, the lawyer explained. Restraining orders are hard to get without threats of violence, but you can start custody boundaries and legal documentation of harassment. You can build a case for a civil harassment restraining order if she continues to contact you after you tell her to stop. It won't undo what happened, but it would prevent it from happening again. Ryan and I talked that night. It was a long, painful conversation. We talked about his mother, about the pattern of behavior that we had ignored for years. This wasn't the first time. There had been other things, smaller things, undermining my parenting in front of Lucy. Oh, let her have the candy, don't be so strict. Showing up unannounced and letting herself in with her spare key. Making decisions about Lucy's schedule without consulting us. We had brushed it off as she's just intense or she loves Lucy so much. But now we saw the truth. It wasn't love, it was control. I think we need to cut her off, I said, the words hanging heavy in the air. Cut her off, Ryan repeated, looking stricken. No contact at all. She doesn't get to see Lucy, doesn't get to be part of our lives, not until she understands what she did and genuinely apologizes. She's my mother, Ryan said, his voice cracking. I know, I said softly. But she hurt our daughter deliberately, and she doesn't think she did anything wrong. If we let her back in, she will do it again. Maybe not a party, but something else. She will keep trying to prove that she is the parent and we are not. Ryan was quiet for a long time. He stared at the floor, the weight of the decision crushing him. Finally, he looked up. You're right. Are you sure? I asked. No, Ryan admitted. But it's the right thing to do, for Lucy. We sent Diane a letter. Certified mail, return receipt requested. It was written with the help of our lawyer, formal and cold. It explained that until she acknowledged what she'd done and apologized to Lucy, specifically to Lucy, she was not welcome in our home, would not be allowed contact with Lucy, and would not be invited to family events. It was a declaration of independence from her toxicity. Diane called immediately. She left voicemails, angry ones, crying ones, demanding ones. How dare you keep my granddaughter from me? You are brainwashing her. I will take you to court. We didn't respond. We saved the recordings. She showed up at the house twice. She pounded on the door, screaming that we were being abusive. We didn't answer. We called the police to report a trespasser. She left before they arrived, but we had a report filed. She sent gifts for Lucy, expensive dolls, clothes, candy. We returned them, unopened, refused delivery. 3 months later, Diane tried a new tactic. She reached out to Ryan's sister, Karen, asking her to intervene. Karen called us, sounding exhausted and caught in the middle. Mom's devastated, Karen pleaded. She misses Lucy. She cries every day. Can't you just forgive her? It was a mistake. Not until she apologizes, I said. To Lucy, not to us, to her. She says she did what she thought was right, Karen said. She says she was protecting Lucy. Then she hasn't learned anything, Ryan said, taking the phone. She still thinks she did the right thing, which means she'd do it again. We can't have that around our daughter. But she's family, Karen cried. Family doesn't sabotage a child's happiness, Ryan replied, and he hung up. 6 months passed. The seasons changed. Lucy's 8th birthday came around. We had a party. We invited the same 23 kids plus a few new friends. 20 kids came. It was loud, chaotic, messy, and perfect. There were no lies, no sabotage, just laughter and sugar and the sound of children being children. Lucy was happy, smiling, running around with her friends. No one mentioned the previous year. No one asked where Grandma was, but Lucy asked me later as I was tucking her into bed. Mama, is Grandma still mad at me? The question broke my heart. Grandma's not mad at you, I said. She's upset with me and your dad. Why? Because we told her she can't see you until she says sorry for what she did. Has she said sorry? Lucy asked. Not yet, I said. Do you think she will? I don't know, baby. Lucy was quiet for a moment, playing with her blanket. I don't think I want her to, she said. I looked at her surprised. Why not? Because what she did was really mean, Lucy said, her voice wise beyond her years. And if she doesn't think it was mean, then she might do it again. 7 years old. She was already wiser than most adults I knew. She understood boundaries better than her own grandmother. You're right, I said, kissing her forehead. That's very smart. It has been 2 years since that disastrous day in the park. Diane has never apologized, never acknowledged what she did. Not to us, not to Lucy. She sends cards on holidays, generic store-bought ones with no personal messages, just a signature. We don't respond. Lucy doesn't ask about her anymore. Last month, Diane tried one more time. She sent a long letter explaining how hurt she was, how we had taken her granddaughter away, how she had done everything out of love. She wrote 3 pages about her feelings, her sacrifices, her pain, not one word of apology, not one acknowledgement of what she had done to Lucy, not one "I'm sorry I made you cry." Ryan read it in the kitchen, his face unreadable. He walked over to the trash can and dropped it in. She still doesn't get it, he said. No, I said, watching the letter disappear into the refuse. She doesn't. Lucy is 9 now. She is happy. She is surrounded by friends who actually show up. She throws birthday parties every year, big, loud, chaotic ones. And every year she looks around the room at the laughing faces and she says, everyone came. And every year I feel a surge of gratitude, not for what didn't happen that first year, but for what we protected. We protected our daughter's joy. We protected her trust. We protected her belief that people show up for her, because they do. The right people do, and the wrong people, the ones who use love as a weapon to control and hurt, they don't get to be part of the story. That is the revenge. Not a shouted argument, not a destroyed reputation, but a life lived fully and happily without the shadow of toxicity. We built a wall, and on our side of the wall there is peace. So tell me, did we do the right thing? Or should we have given her another chance? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, subscribe to Sleep Revenge for more. I'll see you in the next one.